18 slaps for the mistress. My husband broke my leg for it and threw me in the basement to reflect. So I called my estranged father, the head of the Falcone crime family. Dad, I said, it's Stella. Don't spare a single one of them. It was our third wedding anniversary. I cut my trip to Milan Fashion Week short, wanting to give Ethan Donovan a surprise. As I pushed open the door to our home, the sharp click of my stilettos echoed on the imported marble floors. A trail of women's stockings and lingerie was strewn across the living room, leading all the way up to our master bedroom on the second floor. My heart pounded, my palms slick with cold sweat, yet I clung to a ridiculous sliver of hope. Maybe it was just the housekeeper, tidying up. That hope shattered the moment I heard the familiar moans coming from our bedroom. Ethan, what if your wife comes home early? The voice, cloying and sickeningly sweet, belonged to Chloe Cole. Don't worry, Ethan grunted, his voice tight with an excitement I'd never heard before. She's in Milan, won't be back for 2 days. Besides, what if she did come back? She's just some woman with no backing. Isn't she living off my money anyway? I stood outside the door, my entire body trembling. Chloe Cole, my best friend from college, was in my bed, with my husband, after 3 years of pouring my heart and soul into this family. This is what Ethan thought of me, living off his money? The last thread of my sanity snapped. I kicked the door open. The sight that met my eyes was two pale, tangled bodies. Stella, Ethan yelped, rolling off Chloe. Chloe screamed, grabbing a sheet to cover herself, but her face held a smirk of pure provocation. Stella, listen, I can explain. Explain this, you bastard. I swung my hand, putting all my strength into a slap across Chloe's face. Her head snapped to the side, her carefully constructed nose twisting at an unnatural angle as blood trickled from the corner of her mouth. Stella, are you crazy? Ethan leaped from the bed and punched me hard in the stomach. I doubled over in pain, but forced myself to look up, glaring at him. Ethan Donovan, you worthless piece of trash. Do you deserve me? Do you? He grabbed me by the hair, dragging me towards the staircase. Who do you think you are? Marrying into the Donovan family was the luckiest day of your life, you penniless designer. You dare touch Chloe? Her father is the CEO of Cole Corp. My scalp screamed in agony, but I started to laugh. So that's why you cheated. Because her family is richer than mine. Ethan Donovan, have you forgotten who was with you when you were starting from scratch with nothing? Shut up, he roared, giving me a vicious shove. I lost my balance and tumbled down the grand staircase, my right leg smashing into a decorative pillar at the landing. A sickening crack echoed through the hall. The bone-deep pain made my vision go black. Stop faking it. Get up. Ethan walked down the stairs and kicked my injured leg. I let out a blood-curdling scream as cold sweat soaked through my dress. Ethan, I think her leg is really broken, Chloe said, wrapped in the sheet, her face pale as she saw my twisted shin. Troublesome, Ethan muttered. He grabbed my arm and dragged me towards the basement. Let her cool off down there. Maybe she'll remember her place. The pain was so intense I was on the verge of passing out, but I bit my lip until I tasted blood, refusing to make another sound. As he threw me into the damp, dark cellar, I heard him order the housekeeper. No one gives her any food for the next 24 hours. Let her think about what she's done. The heavy steel door slammed shut, plunging me into total darkness. I curled up in a corner, my right leg already swelling to a grotesque size. The pain made time blur. I don't know how long I lay there before I felt the phone in my pocket. Miraculously, it wasn't broken. I scrolled all the way to the bottom of my contacts list, to a number I hadn't called in 20 years. The contact name was a single word, Dad. I pressed call. It rang 3 times before a deep, authoritative male voice answered. Who is this? Dad, my voice was a raw whisper. It's Stella. There were a few seconds of silence on the other end, then the loud crash of a chair hitting the floor. Stella? Where are you? What happened? My husband beat me. He broke my leg and locked me in the basement. Each word felt like a razor blade in my throat. Help me. Send me your address. Now. Just before he hung up, I heard him roar at someone. Get the car. After sending the location, I started to tremble. Then suddenly, I laughed. I laughed until tears streamed down my face. Ethan Donovan, that fool. He only knew me as an ordinary designer. He had no idea who my father was. Before my mother passed away, she told me the truth. My father was Marco Falcone, the head of the Falcone family. the largest and most powerful Italian-American syndicate on the East Coast. Years ago, not wanting to be involved in the underworld, my mother had left him, changing her name to raise me in obscurity. I had inherited her quiet pride, vowing never to rely on that dark background to get by. I hadn't even told my father when I got married. Now, it seemed that pride wasn't worth a damn. Less than 10 minutes later, I heard the sounds of hurried footsteps and fighting from above. Then, the basement door was kicked off its hinges. Silhouetted against the blinding light, stood a tall man in a black suit. "Miss Falcone, I'm Leo," he said. "The Don sent me to get you." He knelt to examine my leg, his expression hardening. "These bastards." As Leo carefully lifted me into his arms, I saw the two bodyguards Ethan had posted outside the door, lying unconscious on the floor. Upstairs, Ethan and Chloe were being held on their knees by several men in black suits, their faces masked of terror. "Stella, who are these people? What are you doing?" Ethan struggled, screaming. I leaned weakly against Leo's shoulder and gave him a bloody smile, a brief introduction. "This is my father's right-hand man. As for who my father is, Ethan, you'll find out soon enough." As Leo carried me outside towards a long, bulletproof Lincoln Continental, I heard Chloe's hysterical shrieks. "Impossible! Stella, isn't your father long dead?" In the car, a middle-aged man with silver-streaked temples was waiting anxiously. When he saw my wretched state, a terrifying killing intent flashed in his eyes. "Stella." I cut him off, my voice as cold as ice. "Dad, the Donovan family, the Cole family, don't spare a single one of them." The bright summer sun was blinding as Leo carried me out of the house. The excruciating pain from my right leg made me bite my lower lip until I tasted blood again. "Hang in there, Miss Falcone." Leo's voice was steady and strong. The scent of his classic cologne, mixed with a faint smell of gunpowder, was strangely reassuring. Behind us, Ethan's frantic yelling continued. "This is breaking and entering. I'm calling the police." "Stella, who the hell did you get involved with?" I didn't even bother to turn my head. Leo's men would handle it cleanly. The moment the Lincoln's door opened, I saw my father, Marco Falcone, whom I hadn't seen in 20 years. He looked older than I remembered. His temples were completely white, but his sharp, hawk-like eyes hadn't changed a bit. Right now, those eyes were fixed on my grotesquely twisted leg. "Stella." His voice trembled slightly. He reached out as if to touch my injury, but his hand froze midair. "Leo, get to Lenox Hill Hospital. Tell Dr. Jacobs to have an operating room ready." I was gently placed on the limousine's leather bench seat. My father used a pillow to stabilize my leg. He pressed a button, and a soundproof partition rose, separating us from the front of the car. "Who did this?" he asked, his voice short, cold as a polar ice cap. "My husband, Ethan Donovan," I said with a bitter smile. "He was cheating on me with my best friend, Chloe Cole. I caught them, and this is what happened." My father's eyes were like the calm sea before a hurricane, still on the surface, but hiding a destructive power. He took out his phone and dialed a number. "I want a full background check on two people, Ethan Donovan and Chloe Cole. Chloe is the daughter of Jonathan Cole." "Good. Don't touch them yet. Wait for my order." Hanging up, he turned to me. "Why didn't you call me sooner? After your mother died, I never stopped looking for you." "Mom didn't want me involved in the mob," I said weakly. "I got into Parsons, got a job at a prestigious firm. I thought I could live a normal life." A muscle in my father's jaw twitched. "And you found a monster who broke your leg?" I had no response. The city lights blurred past the window, just like my ridiculous 3-year marriage. A team of doctors in white coats was already waiting at the VIP entrance of Lenox Hill Hospital. Dr. Jacobs, the top orthopedic surgeon in the country, personally wheeled my gurney into the elevator. My father held my hand the entire way, his calloused palm warm and strong. The surgery was a success. When I woke up, I was in a private suite as luxurious as a 5-star hotel. My right leg was in a cast, elevated in a sling. Outside the window, the city was lit up. My father was sitting on the sofa by my bed, reviewing some documents. The lamplight cast his profile in sharp, hard lines. "Dad," I called out softly. He immediately put the documents down and came to my side. "How do you feel?" "Dr. Jacobs said the surgery went perfectly, but you'll need 2 months to recover." "Thank you, Dad." I paused. "Ethan and the others." A dark glint appeared in my father's eyes. "Leo took care of it. Your husband thought we were just some small-time thugs. He was screaming about calling his lawyers. I couldn't help but laugh, which sent a sharp pain through my side. Ethan, that fool, had no idea who he provoked. The Falcone family's influence on the East Coast was deeply entrenched. Even high-ranking government officials showed them respect. Stella, I need to know what you want, my father said, his voice low as he sat on the edge of my bed. By the family's rules, Ethan Donovan should be at the bottom of the Hudson River by now. I closed my eyes. An image of Ethan from 3 years ago surfaced in my mind. He was just a startup hopeful then, waiting for me for a month straight at the coffee shop downstairs from my office, just to ask me to design a logo for his company. He'd said my designs had soul, that he'd never met a woman as special as me. I want him to suffer a fate worse than death. I opened my eyes, hearing my own cold voice. Donovan Enterprises looks like a real estate giant on the surface, but they made their fortune through loan sharking and forced evictions. I want him to watch the Donovan empire crumble, to lose everything, just like he did to me. My father smiled with satisfaction and pulled a file from his suit jacket. What a coincidence. My people found out the Donovans are bidding on that new development on the east side. Their bid is full of dirty tricks. He flipped through the file. Even better, your husband embezzled $5 million of company funds to launder at a casino in Vegas. That hole in the books hasn't been plugged yet. I took the file, my heart racing. This evidence was enough to send Ethan to prison and make Donovan Enterprises' stock plummet. Dad, I need time, I said, taking a deep breath. I'm going to pretend to forgive him. I'll go back to the Donovan house to gather more evidence. My father frowned. It's too dangerous. Please, Dad. I gripped his hand. I want to destroy him with my own 2 hands. After a long silence, he finally nodded. All right, but Leo will be with you, 24/7. He buzzed for Leo, who was standing guard outside. From now on, your life belongs to Miss Falcone. Leo knelt on one knee, respectfully offering me a custom-made satellite phone. Miss Falcone, this has a direct line to me and an emergency channel to the family. If you're in any danger, just press the red button. We'll be there in 3 minutes. I took the phone. It felt as heavy as the key to a new life. 3 days later, a trembling Ethan Donovan appeared at my hospital room door. His suit was wrinkled, dark circles under his eyes. He was a wreck. Stella, he stammered, holding a pathetic bouquet of carnations. I didn't know your father was Marco Falcone. I put on a weary but forgiving smile. Ethan, I was at fault too. I shouldn't have hit Chloe. Ethan grabbed onto this lifeline, rushing to my bedside. Stella, you forgive me? It was a moment of weakness, I swear. Chloe seduced me. It will never happen again. His clumsy performance nearly made me sick, but the act had to continue. Dad already taught you a lesson. Let's put it behind us, I said gently. When I get out of the hospital, can we start over? Ethan was overjoyed, nodding frantically. He had no idea that as he held my hand, a hidden camera in the room was recording his every expression. On the day of my discharge, my father sent a motorcade of 10 black Mercedes to escort me back to the Donovan estate. The spectacle was so grand it made the front page of the society section. Ethan stood at the door, his face ashen, as Leo personally wheeled me inside. If anything happens to Miss Falcone, Leo whispered in Ethan's ear, just loud enough for me to hear, the Don will let you watch, still breathing, as wild dogs eat your insides. Ethan trembled so violently, I thought he'd collapse. Returning to that so-called home made me nauseous, especially the bed in the master bedroom. Even though Ethan had changed the sheets, I could still picture him and Chloe writhing on it. Stella, you rest. I have to go to the office for a bit, Ethan said, pouring me a glass of water before trying to escape. Okay. Be back soon. I smiled as he left, then immediately poured the water into a potted plant. With Leo standing guard outside my door, I opened my laptop. As Ethan's wife, I had the passwords to all his devices. I logged into his cloud account and quickly found what I was looking for. Hotel booking histories, bank transfers, even a few disgustingly graphic videos. Filthy animal, I sneered, saving all the evidence. Suddenly, a new message popped up on his screen. It was from Chloe. Do you really think she's forgiven you? That's great. I'm waiting for you at the usual place. I miss you so much, baby. I stared at the screen and burst out laughing. Ethan, Donovan, you couldn't even last 3 days. Perfect. That just makes my revenge all the more satisfying. I picked up the custom phone and called my father. Dad, you can start buying up Donovan Enterprises loose stock now. And yes, do it quietly. Hanging up, I looked at the bright sunlight outside. The old me thought love was everything, willingly dimming her own light to be the woman behind Ethan Donovan. Now, that naive Stella Falcone had been shattered, just like my leg bone. From this day forward, I would show everyone the price of crossing the daughter of the Falcone family. Miss Falcone, are you sure you want to do this? Leo stood at the door of my walk-in closet, his brow furrowed. I stood before the full-length mirror, adjusting an earring. The woman in the reflection wore a crimson, fishtail evening gown, her lips a bloody red. The cast on my right leg was gone, replaced by an exquisite metal brace that was partially visible beneath the slit of the dress. Absolutely, I turned to face him. Donovan Enterprises is hosting their anniversary gala, aren't they? How could I, the guest of honor and rightful wife, possibly be absent? Leo hesitated, wanting to say more but holding his tongue. In the 2 weeks since I'd returned to the Donovan estate, I had maintained the facade of a reconciled wife while secretly, through my father's network, acquiring 3% of Donovan Enterprises' floating stock and securing commitments from 2 other small shareholders to sell. My phone vibrated. It was a text from my father. Julian Vance has arrived in New York. He'll be at the gala tonight as a guest. He has what you need. A small smile played on my lips. Julian Vance was the son of my father's old friend, a financial prodigy, fresh from Wall Street, now in charge of the Falcone family's legitimate investments. With his help, my plan would be unstoppable. Miss Falcone, the car is ready, Leo said, handing me a silver USB drive. The video you requested has been processed. I slipped the drive into my custom clutch. Its metallic edge glinted coldly under the light, a perfect match for my mood. The Donovan Enterprises anniversary gala coinciding with our wedding anniversary was held at the Waldorf Astoria. The moment I walked into the ballroom on Ethan's arm, hundreds of eyes turned towards us. There was curiosity, shock, but mostly an eager anticipation for drama. After all, the scandal of the Donovan heir cheating with his wife's best friend had long been the talk of New York's elite. Stella, you look beautiful tonight, Ethan whispered, his warm breath on my neck making my stomach churn. I suppressed my revulsion and gave him a radiant smile. An important occasion like this, I couldn't let you lose face. Ethan visibly relaxed. For the past 2 weeks, my gentle and considerate act, even pretending to beg my father on his behalf, had convinced him that I had truly forgiven his betrayal. The fool, my in-laws approached, their smiles strained. Since learning my true identity, this arrogant couple's attitude had done a complete 180. Stella, dear, is your leg better? My father-in-law, Daniel Donovan, asked, wringing his hands. Ethan can be so thoughtless. We're lucky you're so forgiving. I smiled and nodded, my gaze sweeping the room until it locked on my target by the champagne tower. Chloe Cole. She was wearing a white lace dress, looking like a poorly made wedding cake, and glaring at me with venomous eyes. I'm going to say hello to some old friends, I said, letting go of Ethan's arm and walking towards Chloe with the aid of a cane. Chloe's face went white, and she instinctively took a step back. Chloe, it's been a while. My voice was just loud enough for the ladies nearby to hear. White really suits you. You look just like the character you played in our college production of Medea. Suppressed giggles rippled through the surrounding crowd. Chloe's face flushed from white to scarlet. Stella, don't get too cocky. Ethan is only with you because he's afraid of your father. I pressed a finger to her lips. Tonight is an important occasion. Don't say anything to spoil the mood. I leaned in close, my voice a whisper only she could hear. There's a good show starting later. Make sure you keep your expression in check. Before she could react, I turned away gracefully, just in time to meet Julian Vance as he entered. He wore a perfectly tailored navy suit, and his eyes, behind gold-rimmed glasses, were as sharp as a hawk's. Miss Falcone, a pleasure, he said, lifting my hand to his lips. Your father speaks of you often. Mr. Vance, I smiled. After the party, I was hoping we could discuss the details. It would be my honor. We exchanged a look of understanding and separated. The gala officially began. Daniel Donovan took the stage, boasting about Donovan Enterprises' brilliant performance this year, conveniently omitting the $5 million hole in their finances. I sat at the head table, maintaining a perfect smile, occasionally adjusting my husband's tie, playing the part of a dutiful wife to perfection. Finally, I want to thank my daughter-in-law, Stella, for her understanding and forgiveness. Daniel suddenly mentioned me. Young people make mistakes. What's important is that the family stays together. Now, let us raise a glass to this loving couple. The entire hall raised their glasses. I lowered my eyes to hide the scorn in them. When I looked up again, my expression was one of pure, gentle affection. Ethan was moved, taking my hand. Stella, I swear I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. You don't need a lifetime, I said softly. We can start right now. Before he could comprehend my words, I stood up and walked slowly to the stage, taking the microphone from the MC. Thank you all for coming to our anniversary celebration. My clear voice rang out. As Mrs. Donovan, I've prepared a special gift. I gestured to the control booth. The ballroom lights dimmed, and a giant projection screen descended. Ethan's face changed. He seemed to sense what was coming. No, Stella, don't. He rushed the stage to stop me, but Leo appeared from nowhere, his hand clamping onto Ethan's shoulder like a steel vise, holding him in place. Enjoy the show, my dear husband, I said, pressing a button on the remote. On the high-definition screen, the image of Ethan and Chloe in a passionate embrace on our wedding bed appeared, accompanied by their shameless moans. The timestamp in the corner showed it was during the time I was in the hospital with a broken leg. They couldn't even wait 3 days. The ballroom erupted in gasps. Chloe screamed and tried to run, but was blocked by security. My father-in-law's face turned a ghastly green, and my mother-in-law fainted on the spot. That was just the appetizer, I announced, switching the screen. Now, it showed bank statements and casino surveillance footage. My husband, Ethan Donovan, embezzled $5 million of company funds to gamble in Las Vegas. The East Side development project has been halted, leaving hundreds of evicted families homeless. Finally, I played an audio recording of a call between Ethan and the head of the eviction crew. A few of them dying is fine. The important thing is to have the site cleared by tomorrow. The hall fell into a dead silence. I walked step by step towards Ethan, whose face was now drained of all color. Married for 3 years. I helped you win 7 major contracts. My award-winning designs boosted Donovan Enterprises stock by 30%. My voice was soft, but sharp as a knife. And you repaid me with betrayal, violence, and humiliation. Ethan collapsed to his knees. Stella, but I forgive you, I suddenly said, my voice loud and clear, turning to the stunned guests. After all, what can I do? I'm a wife who loves her husband that much. The hall buzzed with confusion. My father-in-law, as if granted a pardon, scrambled onto the stage and snatched the microphone. A misunderstanding. It's all a misunderstanding. Stella has forgiven Ethan. Everyone, please, continue enjoying the party. I elegantly descended the stage, walking through a sea of complex gazes to the corner where Julian Vance was waiting. He handed me a glass of champagne, his eyes behind the lenses glinting with admiration. An outstanding performance. Miss Falcone, it's only the beginning, I said, taking a sip. Did you bring the documents? Julian produced a folder from his briefcase. It contained the complete shareholding structure of Donovan Enterprises and their real, unaudited financial reports from the past 3 years. Much more interesting than their public filings. I flipped through the documents, my pupils constricting. The company's actual debt-to-asset ratio was 3 times higher than what they had reported. Furthermore, a massive amount of cash had been funneled through shell corporations to unknown accounts. Is this enough to short them? More than enough, Julian smiled. I've already contacted a few friends at some hedge funds. Just give the word. The party continued in a bizarre atmosphere. Ethan followed me around like a kicked puppy, endlessly begging for forgiveness. I maintained a gracious smile, presenting the image of a magnanimous wife tolerating her errant husband. Stella, my father-in-law pulled me aside, sweat beading on his forehead. The board, can you put in a good word? I linked my arm through his affectionately. I've already told my father to stop buying up Donovan stock. We're family, after all. Daniel Donovan breathed a sigh of relief. He had no idea that through various offshore companies, I already controlled 5% of the company's shares, plus the 8% from the 2 shareholders who had promised to sell. I was now the 4th largest shareholder of Donovan Enterprises. After the party, Julian drove me back to the Donovan estate. Leo sat in the passenger seat, vigilant the whole way. Donovan Enterprises stock will plummet next week, Julian analyzed. The scandals you exposed, combined with the short-selling pressure from my contacts, will trigger at least 3 days of limit down trading. Excellent, I said, watching the city lights streak past. When it hits rock bottom, we'll launch a full-scale acquisition. The car stopped in front of the mansion. Julian suddenly asked, "Did you really forgive him?" I burst out laughing, pointing to the brace still on my right leg. "Mr. Vance, do you believe in returning kindness for cruelty?" "No. What a coincidence," I said. "Neither do I." Inside the mansion, Ethan was kneeling in the middle of the living room, sobbing like a child. I looked down on him and found the sight utterly ridiculous. This was the man I once loved? This pathetic, spineless coward? "Stella, I was wrong. I really know I was wrong," he cried, hugging my leg, smearing tears and snot all over my expensive gown. I gently patted his head, as if stroking a dog. "Ethan, let's start over." He looked up, a spark of hope in his eyes. However, my tone shifted. "I need to see your sincerity. I heard Chloe's father is bidding on that new development in the North End." Ethan understood immediately. "Tomorrow. I'll terminate all cooperation with Cole Corp tomorrow." "Good boy." I patted his cheek. "Go to bed. You have work tomorrow." After Ethan had gratefully stumbled upstairs, I went into the study, locked the door, and called my father. "We can begin the next step." "Yes, I want the evidence of the Cole family's smuggling operations." Hanging up, I opened my laptop and exported the video from tonight's gala. The image paused on a close-up of Ethan on his knees, begging. I softly clicked the delete button. This was only the beginning. "My dear husband, you will soon learn that compared to physical pain, losing everything is the true agony." On the third morning after the storm of the gala, I was in the dining room, leisurely enjoying blueberry pancakes. The brace on my right leg had been replaced with a lighter model. Ethan came downstairs, his tie askew, the dark circles under his eyes nearly black. "Coffee?" I pushed a steaming mug towards him. He eyed the cup warily. No, thanks. I have an urgent meeting at the office." I shrugged and took a sip myself. Ethan's behavior these past 2 days had been fascinating. In public, he was completely subservient to me. But in private, he wouldn't touch anything I had prepared. It seemed Leo's warning had truly been effective. "Oh, by the way," I called out as he turned to leave. "The Heritage Club is holding a charity auction tonight. I've donated that Patek Philippe watch on your behalf. You don't mind, do you?" Ethan's face paled. That was my grandfather's." "I know. It's a limited edition." I smiled sweetly. "That's why it will fetch a high price. The papers are already running the story. Donovan Enterprises heir generously donates family heirloom for underprivileged children." He clenched his fists, then released them, forcing a smile that was uglier than a grimace. "Of course. I don't mind." Watching his retreating back, I pulled up the surveillance feed on my phone. The moment Ethan got in his car, he was frantically dialing a number. It was almost certainly Chloe. To complain. Since I had exposed them at the party, they had cut off contact publicly, but were still communicating in secret. My phone buzzed with a message from Julian Vance. "The short sellers are in position. Donovan stock hit its lower limit at market open this morning." I smiled in satisfaction. The video from the gala had gone viral online. The hashtag #Donovan Gala Disaster was trending. The board's emergency trading halt couldn't save the plummeting stock price. Leo appeared silently at the dining room door. "Miss Falcone, the car is ready. Your hospital checkup is first." "I'm ready," I said, dabbing the corner of my mouth. "After that, we're meeting the private investigator my father recommended." In the hospital corridor, I ran into an unexpected person. Chloe Cole. She was wearing sunglasses and a mask, furtively exiting the obstetrics and gynecology department. I quickly ducked into an alcove and snapped a picture of the payment receipt in her hand. Positive pregnancy test. I zoomed in on the photo and almost laughed out loud. It seemed Ethan's efforts on the night of the gala hadn't been in vain. There was indeed a little bastard growing in Chloe's belly. After my follow-up appointment, I had Leo drive me to a discreet office building on the outskirts of the city. The elevator went straight to the top floor, opening into an office filled with electronic equipment. A skinny man in a plaid shirt was staring at 6 monitors simultaneously. "Miss Falcone, I'm Ghost," he said without turning around. "Everything the Don asked me to find for you is here." Ghost pulled up several surveillance videos. In the footage, Ethan and Chloe were meeting secretly at a motel on the city's edge. The timestamp was from yesterday afternoon. And here's something more interesting. Ghost switched screens, showing footage of Chloe's father, Jonathan Cole, and Daniel Donovan in a clandestine meeting at a private club. They meet on the 15th of every month. It's been going on for at least 5 years. I narrowed my eyes. Were you able to get audio? Difficult. Ghost scratched his head. Security at that club is tight. Use this. I took a fountain pen from my purse, a gift from my father. Next time they meet, find a way for a waiter to plant this on Jonathan Cole. Ghost took the pen, his eyes lighting up. The latest bugging device. The family can get its hands on anything. Leaving the investigator's office, I called my father. Chloe's pregnant. Don't touch her yet. This baby might be useful. Also, Jonathan Cole and Daniel Donovan have regular, suspicious meetings. There was a moment of silence on the other end. Stella, the relationship between the Donovans and the Coles might be more complicated than you think. 20 years ago, what? I pressed. Let me investigate it thoroughly first. I'll tell you then. My father's voice was uncharacteristically hesitant. Be careful at the party tonight. Chloe Cole. Hanging up, I fell into deep thought. My father was clearly hiding something, and my intuition told me it was related to my mother. That evening, I changed into the latest Chanel couture gown. A makeup artist created a look of fragile, delicate beauty for me, elegant but pitiable. Leo handed me a jewelry box. From the dawn, inside was a diamond necklace with a rare black pearl at its center. I recognized it as the one my mother wore in a photograph. Miss Falcone, do you need me to accompany you inside? Leo asked as we arrived at the club. No need. Wait in the car, I said, stroking the black pearl. Tonight's drama is a one-woman show. The Heritage Club's charity auction was always a major event for the city's elite. The moment I walked in, the noisy hall fell silent for a few seconds, followed by a chorus of whispers. Is that Mrs. Donovan? I heard she's the daughter of the biggest mob boss on the East Coast. Ethan Donovan must be blind, choosing someone like Chloe Cole over her. I pretended not to hear, walking straight to my reserved seat in the front row. As soon as I sat down, a cloying perfume assaulted my senses. Stella, long time no see. Chloe had appeared beside me, wearing a white dress that intentionally accentuated her slightly rounded belly. I heard your leg still hasn't healed. How pitiful. I smiled, staring pointedly at her stomach. 3 months, isn't it? The first trimester is the most dangerous. You should be careful. Chloe's face changed. She clearly hadn't expected me to know about her pregnancy. Ethan is so excited about this baby. She lowered her voice, a malicious glint in her eyes. He said he's going to divorce you as soon as the baby is born. Is that so? I took a tablet from my clutch and played a video. Then, what was this conversation from yesterday afternoon about? In the video, Ethan was running his hands through his hair in frustration. This baby is coming at the worst possible time. My father has forbidden me from seeing you. The company's stock is a disaster. If that bitch finds out I'm still in contact with you. The color drained from Chloe's face. You. How did you? Room 308 at the Auto Motel. You didn't even close the curtains, I sighed. Cheating requires some basic intelligence. My dear friend. Although the ladies around us couldn't hear our conversation, Chloe's swaying, near-fainting state was enough to draw attention. I stood up, deliberately raising my voice. Chloe, you look so pale. Should I call a doctor? After all, you're pregnant. What? Chloe Cole is pregnant? It must be Ethan Donovan's. So shameless. The whispers grew into a wave. Chloe, in a panic, tripped on the hem of her dress and fell to the ground in front of everyone. When she struggled to get up, a large, fresh bloodstain had spread across her white gown. Ah, my baby, she shrieked hysterically. I watched coldly. Someone call 911. This drama was even better than I had planned. Not only had Chloe been publicly humiliated, she had exposed her own pregnancy. The tabloids would have a field day tomorrow. Before the ambulance arrived, I graciously helped Chloe call Ethan. Hearing that his mistress had miscarried, Ethan's first reaction on the other end of the line was, shit. Now my father is really going to kill me. Hearing this, Chloe fainted on the spot. The charity auction was, of course, out of the question for me. Returning to the Donovan estate, I found Ethan frantically smashing things in the study. Seeing me, he charged forward, his eyes bloodshot. What did you do to her? I blinked innocently. Everyone saw she fell by herself. As for you, I took a step closer. Your words at the motel were truly touching. Ethan froze, as if struck by lightning. You were spying on me. That's not important, I said, sitting down elegantly. What's important is that I've decided to grant you your wish. What? A divorce, I said softly. I'm tired of this sham of a marriage. A flash of manic joy appeared in Ethan's eyes, immediately followed by suspicion. What are your conditions? We were married. After all, I'll only take what I deserve, I said, opening a pre-prepared file. This mansion is mine, plus 5% of the company's stock. Impossible. Ethan jumped up. This house is worth $15 million. And forget about the stock. I sighed and took a stack of photos from a drawer. Then these photos will appear in every major news outlet. The photos showed Ethan not only with Chloe, but with at least 3 other women. More shockingly, several photos showed him with local mobsters while gambling in Las Vegas. You. Ethan's face was ashen. I'll give you 3 days to think about it, I said, putting the photos away. Oh, by the way, Chloe's baby is gone. Your father must be thrilled. He hates the Cole family so much, after all. Ethan suddenly looked up. How did you know my father hates the Coles? Just a guess, I smiled. Why else would he forbid you from seeing Chloe? Ethan looked at me with suspicion, then slammed the door and stormed out. I immediately called Ghost. Focused the investigation on the relationship between Daniel Donovan and Jonathan Cole, especially any dealings from 20 years ago. Hanging up, I opened my computer to review the day's harvest. Chloe's medical records showed that not only had she miscarried, but the fall had damaged her uterus, making future pregnancies difficult. An unexpected bonus. My phone vibrated. My father had sent an audio clip. I put on my earbuds and heard Jonathan Cole's angry voice. Daniel, don't you forget what happened 20 years ago. If I hadn't helped you dispose of the body. The recording cut off abruptly, but it was enough to send a chill down my spine. Dispose of the body? Those words were like a knife to my heart. My father sent a follow-up text. Stella, come see me tomorrow. There are some things you need to know. I stared at the phone, my heart pounding. What happened 20 years ago? Whose body was it? Was my mother's sudden death related to this? Outside, a bolt of lightning tore across the night sky, illuminating my pale, cold face in the window's reflection. A fire of hatred burned in my eyes. Ethan Donovan, you think a divorce is your escape? No. This is just the prelude to my real revenge. My father's old estate was hidden deep within a bamboo forest on the outskirts of New York. The high walls were imposing, with 2 guards in black suits standing sentinel at the gate. During the drive over, I kept replaying that audio clip. The words "dispose of the body" were a thorn in my heart. Miss Falcone, we're here, Leo said softly. I took a deep breath and stepped out of the car. My father was practicing Tai Chi in the courtyard, his movements steady and powerful, not at all like a man approaching 60. Stella, he finished his form and motioned for me to follow him inside. Is your leg better? You've stopped using the cane. I followed him into his study. The rich scent of cigars and leather filled the air. The room was exactly as I remembered it. Even the Ming Dynasty vase my mother had loved was still in its original spot. My father took a weathered manila envelope from his safe, his expression grave. 25 years ago, when your mother left me, she was already pregnant with you. I know, I nodded, but I never knew why she left. My father pushed a faded photograph across the desk. Look at this man. The photo showed a young Daniel Donovan and an unfamiliar man standing in front of a construction site. They were toasting with champagne, a banner behind them reading Donovan Properties groundbreaking. The unfamiliar man had his arm around Daniel's shoulder, smiling broadly. Who is this? I frowned. Jonathan Cole's younger brother. Charles Cole. My father's voice was like ice. He's also the man who killed your mother. My fingers dug into my palms. What do you mean? Years ago, Daniel Donovan and the Coles were developing real estate. They used forced evictions, and it led to a death. Charles Cole was the one who beat a protesting resident to death. My father produced another file. Your mother happened to capture the evidence on camera and was about to go to the authorities. The file contained several grainy photos. Charles Cole, holding a steel pipe, a resident lying in a pool of blood. The date stamp was 1 week before my mother died. Charles found out and chased her down. My father's voice trembled. By the time I got there, it was too late. I stared at the photos, my vision blurring. The truth about my mother's accidental fall from our apartment balcony when I was 5 was actually this. The police had closed the case quickly, bought off by the Donovan and Cole families' money and influence. Where is Charles Cole? My voice was hoarse. Dead, my father said with a cold laugh. A car accident, 3 days after your mother's funeral. I looked up sharply. The look in his eyes told me it was no accident. Daniel Donovan and Jonathan Cole covered the whole thing up, my father said, putting the file away. I've spent years gathering evidence, but their roots in politics and business run too deep. Until you married Ethan Donovan, I suddenly understood my father's silence. You were waiting for me to discover the truth on my own. I didn't want you to be consumed by hatred, he sighed. But now, you have your own reasons for revenge. I stood up and walked to the window. The bamboo rustled in the wind, like the whispers of countless restless souls. My mother, the gentle woman who taught me to paint, had died such a violent death. Dad, I want them to pay in blood. I turned back, my voice frighteningly calm. Not just Ethan, the entire Donovan family, and the entire Cole family. A look of approval flashed in my father's eyes. What's your plan? First, let the dogs turn on each other, I said, pulling up a report Julian Vance had just sent me. The East Side Development Project used substandard steel. The main supplier is a shell company controlled by Jonathan Cole. My father understood. You want to drive a wedge between them first. The media is ready, I said, checking my watch. In 1 hour, news of a structural collapse at the East Side project will hit the front page of every financial paper. My father handed me a glass of whiskey. As for Jonathan Cole, I've arranged for customs to raid his warehouse of smuggled goods. They move tonight. Our glasses clinked together. In that moment, I officially accepted my father's mantle, no longer the naive woman who had suffered in silence. Leaving the old estate, Leo handed me another envelope. Miss Falcone, the internal documents on Donovan Enterprises that Ghost dug up. I flipped through the confidential files, a smirk forming on my lips. Ethan's embezzlement was far more serious than I'd imagined. He hadn't just gambled the money away. He had forged board resolutions to mortgage the company's core assets. Leo, take me to the office, I said, changing my mind. It's time to visit my dear husband. A crisis meeting was underway in the top floor boardroom of Donovan Enterprises headquarters. Through an executive assistant my father had planted, I was listening in real time. The structural collapse at the East Side project was just an accident. The media is blowing it out of proportion. Ethan's voice crackled through my earpiece, frustrated and panicked. The priority now is to stabilize the stock price. Mr. Donovan, the problem isn't just the media. An old, raspy voice interjected. It was Mr. Chen, a company veteran. The latest inspection report shows the materials were completely substandard, and the supplier is an affiliate of Cole Corp. How do you explain that? I don't know, Ethan stammered. The head of procurement is your cousin, Mr. Chen said coldly. The board is demanding a full audit, including the trail of that $5 million consulting fee. I heard the sound of a glass shattering and Ethan's roar of fury through the earpiece. I turned it off, a cheerful smile on my face as I strode into the building and took the elevator to the top floor. When I pushed open the boardroom door, all the board members turned to look. Ethan stood at the head of the table, his face ashen, looking like a defeated rooster. Sorry to interrupt, gentlemen, I smiled, walking to an empty shareholder's seat, a right granted to me by the shares my father controlled. As a shareholder, I'd like to understand the company's plan for dealing with the East Side incident. Ethan's eyes nearly popped out of his head. Stella, you. How? Mrs. Donovan, perhaps you're not aware, Mr. Chen said, rising to greet me. The preliminary investigation suggests the collapse was due to faulty materials from a supplier closely linked to Cole Corp. What a coincidence, I feigned surprise. My father just received a tip that customs will be raiding Cole Corp's smuggling warehouse tonight. The boardroom exploded. Board members started whispering, some already on their phones. Ethan's face turned to ash. He knew better than anyone about the shady, off-the-books deals between the two companies. Gentlemen, I raised my voice. I propose we form an independent investigative committee to thoroughly examine all transactions between our company and Cole Corp. Furthermore, considering Mr. Donovan's recent instability, I move that we temporarily suspend him from his duties as CEO. You goddamn bitch. Ethan lunged at me, but was restrained by security. Calm down, darling, I said sweetly. This is for your own good. Just imagine if those it's and mortgage papers from the Las Vegas casinos were to be made public. Ethan froze, as if someone had him by the throat. He finally understood that what I held over him was far more than evidence of his affair. The board passed my motion with an overwhelming majority. As I walked out of the building, the blood-red sunset illuminated a city on the verge of chaos. My phone vibrated. A text from Julian Vance. Short selling successful. Donovan stock is down 60%. We've acquired another 12% of outstanding shares. It was immediately followed by a text from my father. Customs raid was smooth. Jonathan Cole has been taken in for questioning. I let out a long breath and got into the waiting car. Leo handed me a cup of hot tea. Back to the mansion, Miss Falcone? No, I said, then noticed a black SUV in the rearview mirror that had been following us since we left the office. Leo, we have a tail. Leo's eyes went cold. He spoke into his earpiece. Check the plate on the black Land Rover at our 2 o'clock. Less than a minute later, the reply came. Plate's a fake. But facial recognition identifies the driver as the head of Donovan Enterprises Security. It's Ethan's man. I narrowed my eyes. Looks like a cornered dog is ready to bite. Lose them, I ordered. Then head to the safe house. Leo wrenched the wheel, and the car swerved sharply into a narrow alley. The SUV followed close behind. The two cars engaged in a silent, high-speed chase through the evening streets of New York. Hold on, Miss Falcone, Leo said, pressing a red button on the console. The rear of our car suddenly emitted a thick cloud of smoke. Taking advantage of the pursuer's obscured vision, Leo made a series of sharp turns and finally drove into the underground parking garage of a shopping mall. We switched to another pre-staged vehicle and drove out casually. In the rearview mirror, I saw the SUV still circling aimlessly at the garage entrance. Ethan's starting to suspect you, Leo said, his voice tense. Should I have the family take care of the tail? No, let them be, I sneered. It's time Ethan Donovan learned I'm not to be trifled with. The safe house was a secret apartment my father owned in the West Village. As soon as I was inside, I opened my laptop. The financial news was flooded with reports of the Donovan Enterprises scandal. On social media, the hashtag #Donovan collapse was trending. Even better, news of Jonathan Cole's arrest had spread like wildfire, with rumors swirling that he was involved in not just smuggling luxury goods, but also drugs and weapons. Cole Corp's official website had been taken down, and their stock was suspended from trading. Suddenly, my phone rang. It was Ethan. I let it ring a dozen times before answering. Stella? Did you do this? His voice was hoarse, the background noisy, like he was in a bar. I don't know what you're talking about, darling, I said, putting him on speaker while I continued to scroll through documents. Don't play dumb with me. The board, the stock price, the Coles. This was all you, he screamed hysterically. What do you want? I want you to taste what it's like to lose everything, I said softly. Just like you made me feel. There was silence on the other end for a few seconds, then the sound of shattering glass and Ethan's roar. You just wait. You bitch. I'll make you wish you were never born. The call ended abruptly. I shook my head and called Julian Vance. Continue acquiring Donovan stock, and spread a rumor that Jonathan Cole is about to sell off his shares to pay the fines from the smuggling case. Already on it, Julian laughed. Also, I found out Daniel Donovan has a secret Swiss bank account. For the past 5 years, a fixed amount has been transferred into it every month. The recipient is Jonathan Cole, not Chloe Cole. This unexpected information made me raise an eyebrow. My father-in-law was sending money to Jonathan Cole? Why? Find out what the transaction notes say, and prepare for the next step. I'm going to give Daniel Donovan a big gift for his birthday. Hanging up, I walked to the window. The night was pitch black. In the distance, the lights of the Donovan Enterprises building were still bright. But when the sun rose tomorrow, its owner would likely change. Ethan Donovan, you thought breaking my leg was the end of it? No. What I want to break is the spine of your entire family. The night before Daniel Donovan's 60th birthday party, I stood in front of the mirror in my dressing room, trying on my gown. The champagne-colored fishtail dress accentuated my slender waist. The wound on my right leg had healed, leaving only a faint scar. Leo knocked and entered, holding a velvet box. From the dawn, he said it's to go with your dress tomorrow. Inside was a diamond necklace, the centerpiece, a rare red diamond that cast a blood-like brilliance under the light. I recognized the gem. It was part of a collection my mother had adored. Where is my father? I asked, stroking the cold diamond. Waiting for you in the study, Leo replied, his voice low. Mr. Vance is there too. I slipped on a silk robe and walked barefoot to the study. When I pushed open the door, my father and Julian Vance were poring over an architectural blueprint. Julian was impeccably dressed, his eyes behind gold-rimmed glasses sharp as a hawk's. He nodded slightly as I entered. "Stella, come look at this," my father beckoned me over. The real development plan for Donovan's East Side project. Julian pointed to the blueprint. The notes indicated not the luxury residences advertised, but a dense complex of small, low-quality apartments. The building density far exceeded regulations, and the green space was cut by 2/3. Daniel Donovan lied to the city planning department. This is the final version they started construction on. If this gets out, the entire project will be shut down and they'll be forced to demolish it. And Donovan Enterprises will lose at least $2 billion. I finished. My father handed me a USB drive. The birthday present for tomorrow is ready. And there's something else. I plugged the drive into my laptop. A series of bank statements appeared on the screen. Daniel Donovan's Swiss account, transferring 100,000 Swiss francs to an account under Chloe Cole's name every month for the last 3 years. The memo line always read consulting fee, but the most recent transfer was marked surgical fee. The date was the day of Chloe's miscarriage. Daniel Donovan knew Chloe was pregnant. I frowned. Not just that, Julian opened another file. Chloe Cole's prenatal records show that at the time of conception, Ethan Donovan was on a business trip in Africa. The dates don't match. My eyes widened. So the baby wasn't. What's more interesting, Julian adjusted his glasses, is that Daniel Donovan knew all along and was helping Chloe hide it. My father let out a cold laugh. The relationship between Daniel Donovan and Chloe Cole is probably more than just father-in-law and daughter-in-law. The information made my stomach turn. The Donovan family was even filthier than I had imagined. The press will all be at the birthday party tomorrow, I said, closing the laptop. It's time to give the Donovan family a gift they'll never forget. The next afternoon, the Donovan estate was lavishly decorated, with luxury cars lining the driveway. I walked into the hall on Ethan's arm, playing the part of a loving couple. Ethan had been unusually docile for the past 2 days. Since his suspension, he was like a defeated dog, not even daring to look me in the eye. "Stella, you're here." My father-in-law greeted us, his face flushed. His eyes lingered on the red diamond necklace for a second, his expression shifting slightly. "This necklace, it was my mother's," I smiled sweetly. "Father, you remember?" Daniel forced himself to remain calm. "Of course. Come, meet some of our distinguished guests." He led us to the main table, where several city officials and bank presidents were seated. I noticed Chloe was also there. She wore a tight white dress, her stomach flat, her face pale. When she saw me looking, she immediately lowered her head, her fingers shredding a napkin. Halfway through the party, the MC announced it was time for speeches. Daniel went on stage, beaming, and bragged about Donovan Enterprises' achievements, completely ignoring the recent scandals. The applause was thunderous. "Finally, I want to thank my daughter-in-law for her understanding." Daniel raised his glass. The applause started again. I stood up gracefully and walked to the stage. Ethan, under the table, nervously tugged at my dress, but I brushed his hand away. "Thank you for the kind words, Father," I said into the microphone. "As your daughter-in-law, I've prepared a special birthday gift." I signaled to Julian. He immediately began typing on his laptop. The giant projection screen in the hall descended. Daniel's face paled. "First, let's take a look at the real architectural plans for the East Side project." I clicked the remote. The hall erupted in murmurs. A few government officials stood up abruptly. "Mr. Donovan, what is the meaning of this?" One of them demanded. "A misunderstanding." Daniel rushed the stage to grab the microphone, but I deftly sidestepped him. I switched to the next slide. Next, the Swiss bank statements of Mr. Daniel Donovan. For 3 years, 100,000 Swiss francs a month, transferred to Miss Chloe Cole. The clear bank records silenced the entire hall. Chloe let out a scream and tried to run, but was blocked by security. And finally, my voice turned icy. Chloe Cole's prenatal report. Based on the date of conception, my husband was on a business trip in Africa. Ethan shot to his feet. "You're lying." "The DNA report is right here," I said calmly, showing the final slide. "The baby really wasn't yours, darling." The hall exploded. Ethan, like a mad lion, lunged for the stage but was intercepted by Leo. Daniel's face was ashen, the wine glass in his hand shattering on the floor. "And there's one more thing," I said, playing an audio recording. It was Daniel's voice, speaking to Chloe. "Once the baby is born, Ethan will have to accept it. The Cole family needs this child to inherit Donovan Enterprises. Hearing this, Ethan turned and punched his father square in the face. "You old bastard. You and that bitch." The situation spiraled out of control. Board members and bank presidents stormed out. Reporters' camera flashes went off like a machine gun. I walked elegantly off the stage, through a sea of shocked and fearful gazes, and left the hall. Behind me, I could hear Ethan's insane roars and Daniel's pained cries. Chloe had fainted on the floor, ignored by everyone. "Mission accomplished," I said, getting into the waiting car. "Where to, Miss Falcone?" Leo asked. "The hospital," I said, looking at my phone. "Chloe Cole's post-miscarriage report is in. I want to see it myself." Halfway there, Leo suddenly swerved. "We're being followed." A loud crash echoed as our car was slammed into the median. I was thrown forward, my head hitting the seat in front of me, stars exploding in my vision. Through the rearview mirror, I saw a black, unmarked SUV accelerating towards us. "Get down!" Leo yelled, pushing my head down. The SUV rammed us again. Just as it was about to T-bone us, two motorcycles roared up. The riders drew handguns and fired several shots into the SUV's tires. The vehicle lost control, flipped, and crashed into the barrier. "Falcone family," Leo said, quickly reversing away from the scene. "Are you all right?" I felt the growing lump on my forehead and laughed coldly. "Ethan Donovan is a desperate man." Back at the safe house, I immediately called my father. "Ethan sent people to attack me." "I'm fine." Leo handled it. Hanging up, I checked the surveillance feed from the Donovan mansion. As expected, Ethan and Chloe were in a screaming match. "It was all your stupid idea. Now that bitch isn't dead, and we're finished." Ethan roared. Chloe sneered. "You didn't seem to mind when your father was sleeping with me. None of you Donovans are any good." "Shut up." Ethan grabbed her by the throat. "I'll kill you." Chloe struggled, grabbing a fruit knife from the coffee table and slashing it across Ethan's face. He screamed and let go. Chloe seized the opportunity and fled the room. I turned off the camera. This dog-eat-dog drama was more spectacular than I could have hoped. Julian's call came right on time. "Miss Falcone, the emergency board meeting is over. Ethan Donovan has been officially fired. Daniel Donovan had a heart attack and is in the hospital." "And the stock price?" "Hit the lower limit again." Julian chuckled. "We now control 18% of the shares. With the support of a few other shareholders, it's enough to initiate a hostile takeover." "It's not enough," I said, walking to the window. "I want Donovan Enterprises to be completely destroyed." Hanging up, I opened the safe and took out a dusty folder. It was a copy of my mother's old diary, detailing her discovery of the Donovans and Cole's crimes. The date on the last page was the day before she died. "Mom, it's almost over," I whispered, stroking the page. "None of them will escape." The next morning, Leo knocked urgently on my door. "Miss Falcone, there's a problem. Ethan Donovan and Chloe Cole have disappeared." The mansion was ransacked. I sat bolt upright. "When?" "Around 3 a.m. The guards were knocked out, and the security footage was wiped." Leo showed me a tablet, but a traffic cam caught them being forced into a silver van. The men were in black. "It doesn't look like they went willingly." "Not Donovan's people." I frowned. "Check the license plate." "Fake." Leo shook his head. But the van was headed towards the docks. I immediately called my father's number, but a strange male voice answered. "Miss Falcone, if you want to see your father and your husband, come to warehouse number 3 at the docks. Alone. Otherwise." The sound of Ethan's muffled screams echoed through the phone. The sea wind at the docks tasted of salt and rust. I stood in the shadows, my fingers tracing the outline of the small pistol hidden in my sleeve. "All clear." "Miss Falcone," Leo's voice came through my earpiece. 2 guards at the front, 2 at the back. Unfamiliar faces. Not local. "My father?" Thermal shows 4 figures inside. 2 standing, 2 seated. One matches the Don's build. I took a deep breath. Proceed with the plan. 5 minutes later, 2 muffled thuds came from the back of the warehouse. I deliberately stepped on some broken glass, making a noise. "Who's there?" A voice called out. "Stella Falcone," I said loudly. "You wanted me to come alone, didn't you?" The steel door creaked open. The black muzzle of a gun was pointed at my forehead. The man holding it was a burly thug with a nasty scar under his left eye. "Search her." I raised my hands, allowing another man to pat me down. They took my phone and wallet but missed the razor blade in my custom-designed bra and the pistol up my sleeve. Get in. The warehouse was dark and damp. A single bare bulb illuminated a man in a long coat, his back to me. Two armed henchmen stood beside him. On the floor were Ethan and Chloe, bound and gagged, their faces bruised and bloody. My father was nowhere to be seen. Miss Falcone. A pleasure. The man in the coat turned around. He was in his 40s, with a hooked nose and a long scar on his right cheek. Where's my father? I demanded. The man chuckled, revealing tobacco-stained teeth. Marco Falcone is safe at home. I invited you here to discuss a business proposition. What business? The Donovan and Cole territories, he said, flicking open a butterfly knife. My boss is very impressed with your work. We think we can cooperate. You get your revenge, we take over their operations. Ethan's eyes widened in terror. I sneered. You kidnapped my husband just to talk business? How else could we get an audience with the great Stella Falcone? He shrugged. Besides, this punk tried to have you killed. Consider this a favor. I slowly walked to the center of the warehouse. Let me guess. You're with the Ricci family. I hear my father has been putting a squeeze on your operations lately. The man's expression hardened. You're well informed. I also know. I stopped 10 feet from him. That your shipment at the docks is arriving tonight. Customs has already received an anonymous tip. He lunged. At that exact moment, the roof of the warehouse exploded. Smoke grenades rained down, filling the space with thick, choking smoke. Gunshots, screams, and frantic footsteps erupted. Miss Falcone down! Leo's voice screamed in my earpiece. I hit the floor, drawing my pistol. Through the smoke, I saw the scar-faced man stumbling past. I fired once, hitting him in the knee. He screamed and collapsed. 5 minutes later, the smoke cleared. Leo and a dozen heavily armed men had secured the scene. The man in the coat and his goons were on the ground. Ethan and Chloe were whimpering in a corner. The Don is on his way, Leo said, brushing the dust off my coat. Are you all right? Fine. I walked over to Ethan and ripped the gag from his mouth. Darling, it seems your new friends aren't very reliable. Stella, save me, he blubbered. They were going to kill me. What a pity they didn't succeed. I stood up and turned to Leo. Take them to the police. The charges are kidnapping and attempted murder. Attempted murder? Leo asked. I pointed to a hidden camera in the corner. Their full confession is on tape, including their admission to planning the car crash yesterday. Hearing this, Ethan scrambled up. Stella, you bitch. This was all a setup. Leo kicked him back to the ground. I shook my head and called my father. It's done. It was the Ricci family. They wanted a piece of the pie. Leo's team has already tipped off customs about their shipment. Good. I'm waiting for you. I walked out of the warehouse as the sun began to rise over the sea, painting the docks in brilliant gold. Police sirens wailed in the distance, while my father's motorcade sped towards me. 3 days later, a seismic shock hit the New York financial world. The Falcone Group announced its acquisition of Donovan Enterprises. As the new head of the company, I held a press conference and released years of evidence of their illegal activities. That same day, police raided Cole Corp headquarters. Jonathan Cole was formally arrested on multiple charges, including smuggling and bribery. The image of me standing in front of the Donovan building, answering reporters' questions, was on the front page of every major newspaper. Dressed in Chanel couture, wearing my mother's red diamond necklace, I was a world away from the broken-legged victim I had been 6 months prior. Miss Falcone, as the new chairwoman of Donovan Enterprises, will you be retaining the old management? A reporter asked. I smiled. Of course not. The company needs a complete overhaul from leadership to corporate culture. There are reports your husband, Ethan Donovan, is a suspect in embezzlement and murder for hire. Do you have any comment? The law will deliver a just verdict, I said, my face serious. Personally, I am deeply disappointed and saddened by Mr. Donovan's actions. After the press conference, Julian was waiting for me in my new office. Miss Falcone, here is the final acquisition paperwork. It just needs your signature. I flipped through the file, then suddenly asked, Julian, why did you help me? Was it just because of my father? Julian pushed up his glasses, hesitating for a rare moment. I admire your courage and your intellect. I laughed softly and signed the papers. Donovan Enterprises is in your hands. I hope you'll make it a truly responsible company. Where are you going? He asked. To visit an old friend, I said, checking my watch. Ethan was arrested in upstate New York this morning. I thought I should pay him a visit. The meeting at the county jail was cold and oppressive. Ethan, in an orange jumpsuit, looked gaunt and broken. When he saw me, he lunged at the bulletproof glass, but was shoved back into his chair by a guard. "Stella Falcone, you're going to burn in hell," he screamed, banging on the glass. I calmly picked up the phone. "Ethan, you're suspected of embezzlement, commercial fraud, and murder for hire. With your prior record, you're looking at 20 years, minimum. Oh, and Chloe Cole has turned state's witness. She provided evidence that you and Jonathan Cole conspired to murder that evicted resident. She's lying. It was all Jonathan Cole. Is that so?" I took out a small recorder and played a clip of his voice, clearly saying, "Find some guys to teach those lead protesters a lesson. One or two of them dying is no big deal. That recording is fake," he shrieked. "The judge won't think so," I said, turning off the recorder. "By the way, I got the DNA results for Chloe's miscarried baby. It really wasn't yours." Ethan looked like he'd been struck by lightning. "Whose was it?" "Your father's," I said, twisting the knife. Chloe admitted it herself. Ethan deflated, collapsing into his chair, his soul seemingly sucked out of his body. "One last thing." I stood up. "Donovan Enterprises is mine now. All the shares in your name and your father's name have been used to pay back the funds you embezzled and to cover damages." Leaving the jail, the sun was bright. Leo was waiting by the car. "Miss Falcone, the Don asks that you come home for dinner. He says there's something important to discuss." "I know," I said, getting in the car. 6 months. From a victim of a failed marriage to the heiress of a billion-dollar criminal empire. The thrill of revenge was fading, replaced by a strange emptiness. "Mom, do you see this? The people who hurt you have finally paid the price." My phone vibrated. It was a text from Julian. "Just got word. Jonathan Cole died in prison. Sudden heart attack. The autopsy found traces of a slow-acting poison in his system." I stared at the screen and slowly smiled. It seemed my father had tied up all the loose ends. "Leo," I put my phone away. "Tell my father I'll be home for dinner tonight. Also, make an appointment for me with the director of the Swiss bank. I want to put my mother's necklace in a safety deposit box." "Yes, Miss Falcone." Outside the car window, the city skyline shimmered in the twilight. My era had only just begun. From the floor-to-ceiling window of my office atop the newly renamed Falcone Tower, I swirled the whiskey in my glass and looked down at the city. It had been 3 months since Ethan went to prison. The company was now Stella International. Almost every night I stood here, but the feeling of victory felt hollow. "Miss Falcone, here are today's financials," Julian said, entering and placing a folder on my desk. "The relaunch of the East Side project has exceeded all sales projections." I took a sip, not turning around. "You've worked hard, CEO Vance." Julian didn't leave. He stepped closer. "You haven't attended a single board meeting in a week. They're getting a little worried." "Worried about what?" I chuckled. "That I'll take the money and run? They're worried about you." Julian's voice was uncharacteristically gentle. "After revenge is complete, a lot of people feel lost." I finally turned to look at him. He wasn't wearing his glasses today. There were faint dark circles under his eyes, and his tie was loosened. He looked different from his usual polished self. "You look like you're the one who needs a rest," I said, gesturing to the liquor cabinet. "Care for a drink?" He hesitated, then nodded. We stood in silence, the city lights reflecting in our glasses. "Why did you help me?" I asked suddenly. "Was it really just for my father?" Julian swirled his glass, the ice cubes clinking softly. "At first, yes. I owe the Don my life." He looked up, his eyes intense. "But now, Stella, it's you I admire." My heart skipped a beat. I instinctively looked away. "Don't joke like that." "I'm not joking." He put his glass down and took a small box from his jacket. "This is something your mother lent my father years ago. It's time it was returned to its rightful owner." I opened the box. Inside was an exquisite jade brooch, clearly part of the same set as my mother's black pearl necklace. "My father said that after the fire 20 years ago, your mother saved his life," Julian said in a low voice. "This brooch was the only thing she left behind." "A fire?" I frowned. "What fire?" Julian looked surprised. "The Don never told you?" 20 years ago, Jonathan Cole's chemical plant exploded. It spread to 3 city blocks. The glass in my hand suddenly felt incredibly heavy. My mother had died not long after that accident. I need to see my mother's diary. I put my glass down and grabbed my coat. Wait. Julian stopped me. There's one more thing. I found out the real reason Daniel Donovan was sending money to Chloe Cole. I paused. Go on. The money wasn't for Chloe. It was for Jonathan Cole. Julian handed me a USB drive. Daniel Donovan has been paying him hush money for 20 years to cover up a murder. I clenched the drive, my nails digging into my palm. 20 years ago again. That dark, pivotal year. I need to see my father tomorrow. I took a deep breath. There are some things I need to ask him. My mother's keepsakes were stored in the attic of the old family estate. I drove there that night and found her brown leather-bound diary at the bottom of a dusty trunk. June 15th, 1985. Confirmed the pregnancy today. Marco is overjoyed. But the gang wars are getting worse. I've decided to leave, to give our child a safe place to grow up. I flipped to the last few pages. May 2nd, 1998. I got the definitive evidence. A clear shot of Charles Cole beating that protester to death. I'm going to the police tomorrow. May 4th. Daniel Donovan came to my door. Offered a high price for the film. I refused. The look in his eyes when he left was terrifying. May 5th. I'm being followed. I've made a copy of the film and hidden it in. The diary ended abruptly. The last page had been torn out. I frantically searched the trunk and found a faded photograph tucked into the lining. It was a picture of my mother, Daniel Donovan, and Charles Cole, standing in front of a sign that read Donovan Cole Chemicals. On the back, a small inscription, DCC Shareholders Meeting, 1997. Donovan, Cole, Falcone. My mother's maiden name was not Falcone. I stared at the name. Could she have been a shareholder? My phone rang. It was Leo. Miss Falcone. The Don has been hospitalized. A sudden heart attack. In the sterile hospital corridor, Leo and several of the family's old capos were waiting anxiously. The light above the operating room was still on. My father had been in there for 3 hours. What happened? My voice trembled. Leo shook his head. We don't know. He was meeting with some people tonight, then suddenly clutched his chest. What people? Representatives from the Ricci family, one of the old-timers said grimly. They wanted to negotiate for the Cole family's old territory. I laughed coldly. Jonathan Cole has barely been dead a week, and the vultures are already circling. The old man, who everyone called Uncle Sal, gave me a meaningful look. Miss Falcone, there are some things the Don never told you about the fire 20 years ago. I know. I cut him off. The chemical plant exploded. My mother saved Julian Vance's father. Uncle Sal exchanged a look with the others. Not just that. The fire was set to target your father. Charles Cole killed 2 birds with 1 stone, eliminated a rival, and collected the insurance money. The operating room door opened. The surgeon emerged, his face grave. He's stable for now, but we need to monitor him. No visitors for long. I went into the room alone. My father lay on the bed, his face ashen, hooked up to a dozen machines. Dad, I whispered. He slowly opened his eyes. Stella, did you read the diary? I nodded. Where did Mom hide the copy of the film? The study. In the old house, he breathed with difficulty. Under the 3rd floorboard. Stella, the family is yours now. Don't talk about that. Just rest. Listen to me. He gripped my wrist with surprising strength. Jonathan Cole is dead, but the Ricci family won't let this go. You either go to war, or what? Change course. He coughed violently. The family is too dirty. It's not for you. A nurse came in and gestured for me to leave. As I did, he used his last bit of strength to say, Stella, don't become like me. Back in the study at the old house, I pried up the 3rd floorboard. Beneath it was a small, rusted metal box. Inside were several rolls of film and a letter. Marco, if you are reading this, it means I am gone. The film has evidence of Charles Cole's murder and Daniel Donovan's bribery. Do not seek revenge. Protect Stella. She is too young to be drawn into this filth. I sank to the floor, tears streaming down my face. My phone vibrated. A text from Julian. I found it. The money from Daniel was to silence Jonathan about the truth of your mother's death. They conspired to murder her. The coroner re-examined the old autopsy report. She didn't fall. She was strangled, then thrown from the balcony. I stared at the screen, my mother's gentle smile flashing before my eyes. The next morning, I convened a meeting with the family's capos. The family situation is clear, I began. I want to hear your thoughts on its future. Uncle Sal spoke first. By tradition, the Don's daughter inherits. But with the Ricci family circling, we need a strong hand. And you don't think I'm strong enough? Miss Falcone, your methods with the Donovan family were effective, he said carefully. But the street has its own rules. I see. I pressed a button. The door opened, and Leo entered with a dozen heavily armed men. Gentlemen, you have three choices. 1. Support me in reforming the Falcone family into a legitimate security corporation. 2. Take a generous retirement package. Or 3. I opened a drawer and produced a thick file. I go to the police and confess. This file contains records of everyone's crimes over the years. It should be enough to get me a plea bargain. The room was silent. Uncle Sal's face was pale. Does the Don know you're doing this? This was his idea, I said, looking him straight in the eye. The family is too dirty for anyone. In the end, 5 of the 8 capos took the retirement package. 2 agreed to support the reformation. Only Uncle Sal stormed out, vowing to join the Ricci family. Keep a 24/7's tail on him, I told Leo, and arrange a meeting for me with the head of the Ricci family. It's too dangerous. Just do it. I then called the hospital and find me the best cardiac surgeon in the country. My father's story would not end here. I had to know the truth, the full truth. The red light outside the operating room glowed like a bloodshot eye. I sat on the bench, my mother's black pearl necklace, a cold weight in my hand. My father's surgery had been going for 4 hours. The head of the Ricci family, Don Costello, was scheduled to meet me in 1 hour. The surgeon came out, his face grim. The surgery was a success, but his heart is very weak. He has 6 months at most. I bit my lip until I tasted blood. Can he be woken? I need to ask him something. Not for at least 24 hours. I looked at my watch. Leo, get the car. We're going to the negotiation. In the private room at the plaza, a vase of white chrysanthemums sat on the table. An intentional slight. Don Costello arrived 10 minutes late. An old man in a silk suit, a gold-capped fong glinting when he smiled. Miss Falcone, how is your father? Still breathing, thanks to your concern, I said. Are you here for a truce or a war? He laughed. I like a direct woman. The cold territory. We want 70%. 10%, I said, setting my teacup down. And I have conditions. His smile vanished. Even your father wouldn't dare speak to me like that. My father is ill. I'm in charge now. The air grew thick with tension. His men reached for their waists. Leo stepped forward. What conditions? Costello finally asked. The Ricci family will cease all drug trafficking and human trafficking operations. I slid a file across the table. This is a list of your partners in Southeast Asia. It's already been shared with Interpol. You go legitimate, and this file disappears. I can even introduce you to some legitimate European import-export partners. The profits are just as good. He stared at me, then at the file. The negotiation lasted until sunset. In the end, he agreed. The Ricci family would get 20% of the territory and a $30 million interest-free loan from Stella International to help them transition to a legitimate logistics company. Back at the hospital, my father was in the ICU. They let me in for 5 minutes. I held his hand, thin and covered in needle marks. Dad, I whispered. I met with Costello. He agreed to our terms. The reformation plan for the family is ready. It just needs your signature. His eyelids fluttered. He opened his eyes, his lips moving. I leaned in close. Stella. His voice was a thread. The key? Safe deposit box. What key? He struggled to move the ring finger on his left hand. I noticed a faint indentation there, where a ring had once been. Your mother. A nurse ushered me out. I went straight to my father's bedroom and found a hidden compartment in his nightstand. Inside was an old brass key, engraved with HSBC. The next morning, I opened the safe deposit box. Inside were only 3 things: a yellow divorce agreement, a diamond ring, and a letter. The envelope read, "For Stella, when you are ready." My dearest Stella, my mother's familiar handwriting began. If you are reading this, I am gone. Don't be sad. This was my choice. Marco is a good man, but the family is too dark. I was going to leave with the evidence against the Coles, but then I discovered something even more horrifying. Daniel Donovan and Jonathan Cole didn't just take bribes. They murdered protesters. I had to expose them. even if it costs me my life. The key will open a box hidden under the floor of the gazebo in the old garden. It contains all the proof. Remember, my love, revenge will not bring you peace. Justice is what lasts forever. I love you. Mom. Tears blurred my vision. In the gazebo, under the floorboards, I found the rusted metal box. Inside was the film, a ledger detailing every crime, and a photo of my mother protesting in front of the chemical plant 1 week before her death. I presented the new evidence to the Stella International Board. This is enough to reopen the investigation, Julian said gravely. But the statute of limitations on many of these crimes may have passed. I don't need the law to punish them, I said. Ethan and Chloe are in prison. Daniel Donovan is a vegetable. Jonathan Cole is dead. I just want the world to know the truth about my mother's death. 3 days later, my father was moved to a regular room. I told him everything. He wept. It was my fault. If I hadn't been in the life, she would still be here. It was their fault, Dad. You just couldn't protect her. He pulled a file from under his pillow. Sign it. It was the final transfer of all Falcone assets, everything, to me. At the end was an addendum. In the event of a marriage between Stella Falcone and Julian Vance, Mr. Vance will receive a 10% stake in the company. I looked up. My father was smiling for the first time in what felt like years. That boy is a good one. Much better than the son-in-law your mother picked out for me. A month later, Stella Security was officially launched. At the press conference, I announced that 10% of all profits from the East Side project would be used to build an orphanage and a school in the area. When a reporter asked about my father's past, I smiled. My father took a wrong path, but he spent the rest of his life trying to make it right. One of the missions of Stella Security is to give people like him a chance to start over. Afterward, Julian took me to the new Central Park in the East Side development. The design is very similar to the dream garden your mother described in her diary, he said, leading me to a fountain. Stella, he began, then suddenly dropped to one knee, producing a vintage diamond ring. I know this is sudden, but I want to officially ask to be in your life. Not as a partner, but as... I put my hand over his mouth, my eyes welling up. Give me some time. Let me finish dealing with my father and the family. I'll wait as long as it takes, he said, standing up and gently hugging me. Just don't lock yourself away in that cold office anymore. On the day of the wedding, the sun was brilliant. My father, looking healthier than he had in years, walked me down the aisle. Julian was waiting, his eyes full of love. I had tied my mother's black pearl necklace to my bouquet. When the officiant pronounced us husband and wife, the hall erupted in applause. My father was crying in the front row. Leo and the other former family members, now in sharp suits, clapped sincerely. Later, on the hotel balcony, Julian wrapped his arms around my waist. What are you thinking about? The future, I said, leaning against him. Stella, security, the East Side project, the children's library. And I rested a hand on my flat stomach. Julian's eyes widened. You mean? We'll know for sure next month. I smiled at his joyful expression. If it's a girl, her name will be Livia. That was my mother's name. He held me tighter. Thank you, Stella. Thank you for ending this cycle of hate. In the distance, the first light of a new day was breaking over the city. My mother's pearl seemed to glow in the starlight, like a perfect end and an entirely new beginning.